this is Nothing Lightly, and we're back with another episode. I'm Cease, and I'm here with...
This is Dee Dee.
So, this is an exciting episode. We can barely get this out because this will be our last episode of this season. And it's been a blast. It's been almost... How many episodes? This is our 20th episode. And, I mean, we wouldn't have thought this when we started. But it's been a great run. It's been exciting. It's been a lot of learning, a lot of curveballs been thrown our way, but we love doing this, and it's been exciting doing this together. To me, that's been the best part. But we want to share in all of those great moments. Deasia, what are we going to do with this episode? What are we talking about today?
So we just going back on some of our most memorable moments with this podcast. We've had, like Sierra said, this is our 20th episode. And out of the 19 previous, which ones were our top episodes? We'll each give you 3. And then which ones maybe it wasn't the episode, but it was a funny moment in that episode. Again, we started this podcast just because we just love talking sports. And look, after 19 episodes, this is our 20th. And we heading into the second season. We're going to talk more sports. It's going to be even more funny. We're going to make you all laugh even more, but we're going to banter and we're going to go back and forth. And this next season, we'll tell you at the end how we're going to change it up a little bit. But for right now, what are your top 3 episodes here?
Well, I just want to say this. This is my question to you. Did you think that we had this much to say about sports?
Well, I always knew that we had a lot to talk about it. And, it's not just us. We come from a basketball family. We come from a sports family is what I should say. Like, we love to just talk sports. Like, our auntie, she loves the Bulls. Our brother, he loves the Bears. He say he loves the Bulls, but I feel like every time I look up, he got another team. Yesterday, he was cheering for the Raptors. So we come from this sports family. And so when we talking out every day, we can talk sports with anybody, Sierra, but it's something different when we talk about it together. It's like, that's our language. We speak the same language on that, and we go back and forth. Like, sometimes I don't always agree with what you say, but I think out of anybody in this world, I probably agree with you the most. So even if we argue, it's not so much of an argument with you. It's just like, I'm trying to get you to understand I'm saying.
It's like you my other side, like you the other point that I'm trying to make but can't get to it, or you like the furthest point that I want to make, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
because
or my perspective is just a different perspective that you probably hadn't thought about yet. Or, hey, why don't you give this person a chance? Because usually we're discussing something that we both feel the same way about it, and just, I don't know, it's just weird to say, but right now in this moment, I'm glad that we got to this point. We started by just literally, we was at different points, spaces in the world, different places in the USA. And you was at your computer, I was at my computer. Now look at us today, sitting right next to each other. We've been putting out episodes like this actually more towards the end of our season. It's been more of us being together. But first, we started off just on the phone talking. We then decided, hey, why don't we finally do our podcast? We was talking on the computer for the longest, and now here we are doing our last episode, sitting right next to each other, about to get into what was our 3 top episodes. What did you like the most?
Well, it is being together like that. It's a different conversation when we sit next to each other, because it's been moments when I'm laughing on this couch and I'm trying to get Deasia to focus, or I'm trying to focus on what she just said, but it's like, it's funny because I'm literally sitting here reacting, and then you got that component of we kind of can finish each other's sentences, so I know what she's gonna say. So it's just better being together. But I think that this podcast, it has given us like something to look forward to with each other when you were away. Like, let's talk, but let's just focus in on this conversation, because we can talk about a lot of things, but let's focus in on sports right now, and let's always bring the conversation back to that. So that's what I like about it.
Well, Sierra still won't say her top 3 episodes, but I did like how she turned. I want to say one thing about what she said. It's not, we came together and it gave us the time to talk about things that we love, of course, sports, but it also gave us a relief away from what we were doing. It made it light for us to, hey, did you see that play? Did you see that game? Did you even see what's going on in the media? And I think that was a big part of our podcast. A lot of our this run that we've been on has been social media, making sure that we're staying up to date with highlights. That's been a huge part in, hey, I need you to be up to date on your stats. You know what I mean? Sarah, I'm kind of more the stats person, but you are more of someone who makes sure you know the story, I would think, like behind that player or whatever that moment is. You always know the story of what should we know, where I'm more of the stats. Would you agree to that?
Yeah, I would agree to that.
Another thing that I've noticed over this journey is, I do want to apologize to some of our fans, those that are listening. We do have these spurts where, we're not able to put out as many episodes, and we've talked about that over this season. So hopefully next season, that's something that we can improve on. But sometimes, it's just life gets in the way. But this is really a love of ours, and it's been a great first season.
And the thing about this is we're doing this podcast while we have so many other tasks to do. So Deasia, she's finishing medical school. So that's been a big, that's been a big deal. And that's taken a lot of her time. And I understand it. Plus, me working in healthcare, it's a day-to-day grind. So just us taking this moment, it is like a breather from our busy lives. But and that's not to give an excuse, but that's what we're doing when we're not recording. So any other moments, we have all these, even now, we're already planning for the next season. We already know some episodes that we want to record, and some stuff, to be honest, when we did this season, it's a lot of episodes that just didn't make it. We had even more that we just didn't finish editing. Like, I think we have at least 4 episodes that we did it all the way through. We just didn't edit it.
And I think that was earlier on. When you're doing a podcast, this is us independent doing it. We doing all of this ourselves. We're editing, we're recording. But early on, some of the episodes we just did not really, we felt that was not getting our voice across and what we were trying to say. Now we get to the point where we're so comfortable with it. We want it to be a little bit raw and uncut. We don't care about editing as perfectly. As our fans, I hope that you all appreciate that too, that this is live in the moment. This is how we really talk to each other. And I think at this point, we're comfortable with getting that across. We're going to make mistakes. Even if we mess up somebody's name, what we're trying to say. No disrespect to that player or who we're talking about. And we're always one thing I think our podcast is based on is uplifting women's sports. So if we never going to put a woman in a bad light, even men's sports, we're trying to elevate any, sport that we can. That's what our podcast is based on. Yeah. What would you say, Sharon?
Yeah, we're not here to shine a light on an athlete or shine a light on a moment in sports, but the conversation is negative. No, these conversations are positive, uplifting, but you're going to get our opinion. You might not agree with it, and that's the thing. You might not agree with it, but we're not here to bash. I feel like that's not our lane. Our lane is to bring light to it and to just give an opinion. Facts, whatever. It could be facts, or it could just be our thoughts on it, but this is our take. And we kind of do agree a lot. Me and Deasia. That doesn't mean that you all have to agree, but it's just a different way of thinking of things. And the cool thing about this is we have a lot of friends, our family, that, they've heard something that we said, and they might even ask, hey, what did y'all mean about this? Or why y'all didn't talk about, we have a lot of conversations outside of the podcast that we either bring back to the podcast or people have asked us about because of this. And so that's just cool too, that even the people closest to us, they've had that.
Yeah, I would agree to that. I think when we started this podcast, of course it was just on us wanting to talk to each other, but we have really strove, we have strived to make it, put our voice into sports, and I think we're doing that. Although it's at a small level, that's what season 2 is about. It's about growing and being able to reach more people, inspire people that, your voice in sports matters too. And we're just 2 people that both got busy lives, and we can take the time out and give our take on something, whether you like it or not. This is our take. We hope it's funny. We hope that you get some joy from it. We hope that you actually talk back to us and tell us what you think. That's what our podcast is about. We don't take anything lightly. Anything in sports really should be elevated. It should be talked about. You should say what your opinion is. And that's what we hope that you got from this season.
Yeah. So, Deasia, let me tell you my top 3 moments. Well, I'm going to give you one at a time. I think my favorite episode, this one, it always sticks to me because it's just something that, it was one of those episodes that I learned the most about myself as an athlete, and I learned the most about myself as far as, just as a woman, with a goal, a woman still with a dream of doing something. And that was the Jordan Childs episode. Now, we see what she's doing on the gymnastics circuit right now, Deasia. She's going for the record to break the perfect 10 record. Like, it's crazy. But to just sharing that story, and I introduce you to, the book that she wrote, introduce you to a lot of those huge moments that she talked about. Some of those where, her medal was stripped. But I learned so much about myself as an athlete. I learned so much about myself as a young woman, a professional, continue to grow in whether it is this journalism field of podcasts or just even speaking out, having a voice in this, or just in a professional way. How can I do that in my job? How can I just be myself? So that was probably one of my top 3 moments of our podcast. And I feel like my voice, or what we did on that podcast episode, is we introduced our audience, whoever was listening, and, brought the attention back to someone who deserved it, brought the attention to Jordan Child. So go out and read her book or follow her story. And that's what our job was, I think, in that episode. And I think we accomplished that.
Yeah, I think the only thing that we didn't live up to what we said we was going to do was start our book club. So that's something that we really need to push for the second season. But I really did like that episode. However, that wasn't my top 3. But of course, I really knew that was going to be your top 3. You really pushed that episode. It was really all about your take on that book. I really just asked you questions the whole time.
But it's like, you know of her story, though. It wasn't even about the book. You have a lot of respect for her as an athlete.
It's a good episode. I think that
she's a generational talent.
Yeah, that episode, we had a couple of those episodes where it wasn't just about the sport. It was more the mental aspect around the sport. So we had, I think, 2 or 3 of those type of episodes, and that was the transition and leading into, hey, we can get a little bit more, serious. I think we started off with a lot of playfulness, and that's fine. I still like to play a lot. I mean, I know Sierra want to get serious, but we had like 2 or 3 serious episodes right back to back.
But that's interesting that you can pinpoint, like, it was that episode that probably kind of put us on this conversation, like, hey, we can't just only be light. We also have to, talk about some of these moments that we know, even for us, these moments were serious, and how did they impact you as a person or as an athlete? So I think, that episode, it did that. Now, Deasia, let's go back and forth. So you give me at least one of your top 3.
So since you're talking about, I'll say one of my top is definitely the D Rose episode. I think that was like, at first we came out the gate talking about the All-Star game. We came out, I think, like really talking about NBA. We set the tone of what we wanted our podcast to be. Like, you knew that we was going to talk a lot about basketball. And then we come back with this episode of just like really, it was so different from our first, I think, 1 and 2 episodes. And then we come out with this episode really just highlighting the type of player he is. And then now, a couple weeks ago, we just saw his ceremony. It was like we been gave him his flowers. That was actually one of my favorite episodes, because that forced me, I think, since I'm just such of a stats person, it forced me to look more into the stats. And I won't say that I wasn't never really a huge fan of D Rose, because I did really like his game, but I think that episode allowed me to really see him in a different light. And he's not my favorite point guard, but he's up there for me, definitely top 5. And I think that episode had changed things. It's kind of funny how sports are. That's like when you look at somebody, that's how we look at LeBron. When he's gone, you're going to recognize how great they were. It took him being out of the league, getting all these accolades, for me to really appreciate, wow, this guy was truly amazing. So that was one of my favorite episodes.
When you look at his documentary, Deasia, it it definitely reminds you, like, how great he was and how much he meant to Chicago. So I am happy that we did that episode. If we're going to talk about basketball, it's no other person deserving. And from our generation, like, that we actually seen come up and make his mark, we had to do that.
But you know, that's why I really like that episode. I think I really push you to say, let's focus on just one player. And I tell you, like so many times, I would love to just keep doing them episodes. You don't like them as much, but it's so many players that I wish that we would have gotten to. But that's what the second season is for. You're gonna see me really pushing Sierra. Let's focus on this player. Let's focus on that. To me, those are my favorite episodes when we really highlight that impact, and he was our first with that, and I think it really just changed our podcast to me.
Yeah. One other episode that I like, and this is kind of it's a different conversation than what we're saying. I actually like the first episode because I can remember that episode so clear as day. Like, I remember even recording it. I remember doing all the edits to it. I mean, it just seemed like this was just yesterday, but can you believe this is a year ago? And the reason why I like that episode is because we was talking about something so controversial, but so like almost silly. Like, we was literally spending all of that time talking about the NBA All-Star game and comparing it to the WNBA All-Star game. And look what time it is. It's literally back around. And I mean, the question is still the same, Deasia. Is it going to be important for the NBA? Like, is it going to be the same old thing that they've been doing the past few years? And we still have not solved or have not come to any closer answers to that. But that episode was so fun, and I think it just set the tone to how our podcast was going to go.
Yeah, that was like our, you know, you either take it or leave it. It was like, we're going to talk a bunch of trash and we're going to go at each other. I think out of all of our episodes, we went at each other so much in that episode. You know, maybe that went in the second one because it was like we talked about what was going to happen, and then we come back with the recap, and it was like exactly what we had said, but we was coming at each other. And I think throughout the season, we kind of don't do that as much anymore. But I would like to get back to that because although we do think alike, there's some things we just don't agree on. And maybe I have a stronger take on it than Sierra. Sometimes, you know, people like to say we're a lot similar, but I think in that we really showed that our difference in our voices. What do you think, Sierra?
Yeah. And it's funny because even the editing process of us recording that episode, and we were in different places, but us kind of having those conflicting views, talking over each other, it was so difficult to even edit those episodes because we had so much to say and we're trying to talk over each other, but it was just still beautiful. It was still like one of my favorites. Even though it was challenging, I think that we did a great job.
That was 2 from you. I would say my next favorite was, of course, the 30 for 30. It was our 30th birthday. I don't think if I'm going to be like critique that episode as far as the editing standpoint, we didn't get our sound right, but just listening to the content of that episode, we really talked about what our goals was for this podcast, but what was our goals just as people in life. And, you know, it's really an episode where if you want to get to know who is Sierra, who is Deasia, who is C's, who is Dee, and what is Nothing Likely, then you should listen to 30 for 30. And I think a lot of people, you know, from our reviews, I think from what people told Juice here, they love that episode. And although that was probably our worst editing as far as the sound, I don't know what happened. It sounded like a computer, but the content in that episode was just, you're going to get a lot of our history and who we are from that episode.
Yeah.
Now, what is your third one?
I think it was a recent episode that we had did. It might have been 4 or 5 episodes ago. It might have not even been 4 or 5. But it was around the time we was just talking about women's basketball. And I want to say it was like, it might have been WNBA, but it led into a whole bunch of college. But I really love those episodes because we kind of have a goal of what we're going to talk about, but they just lead into so many other topics. So I want to say that. But if I had to pinpoint one other thing, I would say probably when we had to talk about March Madness, when we kind of went in, it was that UConn episode. That was one of them ones where we just had so much more to say. And I feel like we was literally like, dang, we can't keep going. Like, this conversation is such a mouthful. That UConn episode, that episode when they they didn't surprise. When they took the championship last year, like, I can remember that conversation. And I think that we wanted to record multiples of that episode. Like, we still had so much to say and we had to cut it off. So, yeah, that was one of my favorites as well. Because I can remember breaking down plays and like saying, "Oh, did you see AZ Fudd do this? Boom, boom, boom," and we just left so much off of that episode.
Yeah, so I would say I know which episode you're talking about with the pay gap. That was one of, to me, that was like one of our funniest episodes. Besides when we dropped our brother's name in the first episode, and he got so upset about that.
And if you talking about moments, I think my favorite moment was that episode when we said at the same time, she gonna lose her job. Yeah, like that's like a tagline.
No, that's the episode that I'm talking about. That was a crazy episode. I think that was like, besides when we dropped our brother's name, he hated that. That was funny to me because that's who we are when you just get to talking. But this other episode, when what you talking about, she gonna lose her job. That was the episode when we was talking about the difference in the pay gap from women, and then we was coming at all them people that saying women don't deserve. I love that episode because we're talking about you deserve to have a child that loves basketball, and I hope it's a girl that just loves basketball so much that you just stuck at these AU games, stuck at college games, and you just got to support this girl all the way through the WNBA. Remember we were saying that year, I wish you nothing but that fortune. That was funny to me. But I know exactly what you're talking about. That was one of my favorites. But I think going back to when we really highlight these players, this was another one that I really love. And I think this is my number 3, is Do We Still Love Candace Parker? That was one of those episodes for me, highlighted. Because, again, this is somebody from Chicago here. And we know that she had been saying some crazy stuff and on her podcast and Just in Sports. But at the end of the day, she's still one of the faces of the WNBA. We literally watch the WNBA for players like her. So that episode is, again, you look back, and we always love Candace Parker. I think it was her most recent things where we was like, what are you talking about? Give these younger players a chance. But then you just look at her game and you just got to say it's undeniable. She's one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah. Now, I would say as far as fans or feedback that we got from people that we didn't know, I think that the NFL, when we talked about the fantasy league, that episode, and the way that we kind of dug into the seriousness of that conversation, like we wasn't expecting that. The conversation just led to it, and we wasn't expecting to have that type of feedback, but people really liked that episode. And then we kind of did turn around, like, yeah, we kept it light. In fantasy football, like, that was just kind of the humor of this season, because I mean, I was doing well and I stopped. And Deasia, who had never played, like, she was serious the whole time. So, I mean, it was just kind of a joke between both of us. And if you was following along, we kind of gave tidbits of how we were doing. But I think that episode was such a surprise. We didn't expect to have that type of response. And then also that episode to do what it did as far as how people perceived it.
Yeah, so looking back, those were our biggest moments from this season. We had a lot. We were inspired by several other podcasts. Shout out A Touch More. Shout out Carmelo's. We like to watch other podcasts. I mean, shout out Candace Parker and what Aaliyah Boston are doing right now with their podcast. There's a space for everybody in sports. It's just like this here. When you walk down a grocery store and you see 10 bottles of ketchup, like, who decides we can't have any more ketchups? They just keep making all type of brands of that. This is our take on ketchup. It's nothing lightly. Like, this is our take. You either like it or you don't. This is what we're going to do in the next season. We're going to talk about way more women's sports. So this bottle of ketchup, we're going to like drown it with women's sports. It's going to be 60% women's sports. And if you don't like it, then this is probably not the podcast.
I want to ask you something, though, Deasia. We're talking about our favorite 3. But if it was something, because I do want you to ask me this. If it was something that we didn't talk about in these 19 episodes, what was that moment in sports that you wish that we did give some credit to, or we did have an episode on it? What outside of, I know that you said you wish we could have like just highlighted a few more players, just focused in on that, but is it a such moment in sports that you just say, dog, we missed our beat, we didn't do that episode, but we really wanted to?
Well, there's always big moments in sports. Sports are still going on. I would say, I think probably a MLB episode like that series. I don't think we did an episode.
No.
So that would be, I think we could have gotten there. But as far as women's sports, I think we really dug in there, and that's just going to be our transition. I don't think we missed anything with women's sports. You're going to see us like, if you thought we was doing too much, well, we're going to do a lot more. I'm just letting you know that right now.
And I agree that was the one. I'm glad you said MLB because that was such what I was thinking. That World Series, I really wish that we could have just did an episode on that. I think that was like one of those World Series that you'll never forget. It was one of the best in the last 5 years, in my opinion. I do tend to watch the World Series, even if I'm just catching a few games of it. But it's that big moment in American sports that people love. Like, it's so much history in baseball. But I think you just seeing the Dodgers having that much tenacity over them games, like the guy throwing a ball from center field, throwing them out at home plate, the success from the pitching staff. It just was a great World Series that I wish that we could have talked about. And so we'll have that chance next summer. Yeah. We'll definitely have that chance.
And we can always go back and do an episode. That's what this is about. Like, we've learned that some of our better episodes is when we go back and talk about it. Yes, we like to be current, but, that's just not the reality sometimes. That, we just, when we don't meet that deadline. I don't like putting that pressure on ourselves. This is for our fans. And our best takes are sometimes previously recorded, like looking back on, okay, what happened? You know what I mean, Sierra? Not so much in the moment because a lot goes on. And that's why, like I said, I really like when we highlight players. You looking back over a time span. So we'll do that MLB episode.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens with that. But again, I keep saying it, you're going to get even more women's sports. So we need to shout out softball. Show what's going on with women's flag football. These are things in the women's sport that I really want to get to in the next season. What are things that you hope for in the second season?
Yeah, I hope that we kind of dive in on some more story-led episodes. We talked about that we want to just highlight coaches, some coaches that are making some huge strides in the college realm or, the college side of sports. Even some local stories, if it's just a huge standout story in Chicago sports that's happening. But I also think, there's an opportunity like those sports that kind of, it's not forgotten, but we need to highlight it. Women's soccer, it's taking off right now. Women's tennis, it's taking off. One of my favorite women's athletes to follow is Taylor Townsend. Like, she is one of my favorite athletes, like, period. I think that she's funny. I think that she's definitely relatable and she's real. She shows you her day-to-day life and you can relate to half of the stuff that she's doing, more than half of this stuff. Like, so she's one of my favorite athletes to watch. So it's people like that are so relatable. And I think that it's different spaces now that's giving us a glimpse of what the lives of athletes live. So I kind of want to get more into that.
Well, I mean, we got some big things planned for Nothing Lightly. Like Sierra saying, we're going to, dive in deeper. And
well, I got one question because I know you're trying to wrap up. Patriots or Seahawks?
I'm going to go with the Seahawks, Sierra. I think they are, they saying this is their year. If I was to go with the underdogs, it's ironic that the Patriots will be the underdogs this time. But I know one thing, I'm not a huge Bad Bunny fan. I said that on the last episode. So I'll be tuning into the game. What about you? Which team are you going for?
I'm going Seahawks. We can agree on that.
One thing I want to say next season, we only had one guest this season. Next season, we're going to try to really push for a couple more guests because, this show is for everybody. And we want to bring in some people, especially our brother. We asked him to get on the pod. I can't wait till he's on here talking mess.
Yeah, he has so much to say. It's funny. He has literally so much to say. He's even trying to redecorate our space where we record. I guess he thinks we're going to go live. And that's what we should do, Deasia. We should show people us, like, I mean, we will do that. We will show you all what it looks like for us to record the behind the scenes. Some of it is bloopers, but literally we're going to show our faces and maybe that'll get our brother on here.
And so you will see more guests next season. We gonna have our brother. We probably will have our auntie. She's been asking to get on there too. And then just some random people. I've been wanting to get one of my friends. He's really into hockey, so we'll see if he can get on here because that's a sport that I don't know anything about. But just trying to do more and be more dedicated next season. Thank you all so much for listening. This is the end of season 1. Let us know in the chat what you like. What was your favorite episode? Was it D-Rose? Was it Candace Parker? Was it 30 for 30? Or was it the first episode where we went at the NBA All-Star game? Let us know. This is the end of the first season. And as always, thank you all for listening. Nothing Lightly and signing off.